think I'm pregnant. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I've watched other people's pregnancy videos, and what they say now is it's going across. So I'm gonna put the lid on. And then I feel like it's saying I'm pregnant already, but I'm not gonna. I know that there are so many of you who found me my twin content, and so what I want to do is try to create a series around having twins, twin pregnancy, all of those kind of things, because I know that there are some of you who are currently pregnant with twins, who have had twins, who are interested in having twins, and now my twins are 2 years old. There are definitely quite a few things that I think I've been able to figure out, establish, understand a bit more about having twins and the whole twin experience. I do have twin fraternal boys, and I have an older son too, so I've got 3 boys. So in this video I wanted to start a bit more towards the earlier part of my twin pregnancy. My husband and I decided that we wanted to have another child. We tried to have another child, and I found out I was pregnant. Before I found out I was pregnant, I was feeling unwell. I think that because I've missed my period, it was supposed to be about 8 days ago, and I also feel terrible. I have a really bad PMS. What feels like PMS. I've been in a bad mood for like what feels like weeks now. Guys, I think what really helped me is because I had already been pregnant, I kind of had something to compare it to. And I know there's been quite a few of you guys in the comments who are like, well, this is my first pregnancy, I don't have a reference point or anything like that, which I think makes getting ideas about whether you could be pregnant with twins a bit harder. But leading up to me finding out I was just really, really sick, I felt as though I was pregnant with twins, and I was kind of sharing that with the people around me, my husband and my mum, and kind of saying, you know, I think it might be twins. And for the most part, everybody was just like, no, you're just pregnant. Because another thing that happens when you're pregnant, if you've never been pregnant before, is that the body has a really good way of forgetting everything. So whilst you're pregnant, or even when you give birth to a child, you might experience, not all the time, but you might experience things that are uncomfortable, or make you feel afraid or sad, or, you know, you get all of the feelings throughout the whole thing. A lot of the times you get to the end and you've got the baby, and it's really hard to remember all of the things. I'm not a scientist, but I think that it's the body's way of kind of making sure that you have more kids. Because maybe if you remembered it all, you'd kind of second guess doing it again. So when I was saying I was sick, everybody was kind of just like, you've just forgotten how it can be, and so don't worry about it. You know, you'll feel better after you get out of your first trimester. The signs that I now think I had of twin pregnancy were that I just had extreme nausea, I could smell everything, I had really bad fatigue. I was pregnant over the pandemic, so it kind of helped me because I was able to get a bit of rest. I didn't really have to leave the house to go into the office. So I was spending a lot of time either on the sofa or sitting up in the bed, kind of trying to multitask, feeling sick and working at the same time. But I was just really, really, really sick. It was hard for me to eat food. I remember eating a chip, and not like a chip, like an actual chip. Tasted awful. So my symptoms were just so extreme that I was convinced that I was either pregnant with an alien or it was twins. We found out that we were having twins via ultrasound. So we went, I think it was at 8 weeks or 12 weeks. We went to have our ultrasound scan, and when we got there, they put the jelly on, and they put the ultrasound thing on, and there were 2 heartbeats, and I just knew it. I was just like, yeah, I know. the tech was like, oh, I want to let you know that you're pregnant with it. Yeah, I know, because I feel awful. If you can imagine what it might be like to have 2 people inside of you, that's exactly what I felt like. So I kind of was like, yeah, I kind of knew. I definitely think your intuition or having a sense of knowing is definitely also a symptom of twin pregnancy. A lot of twin mums talk about, you know, that they knew. They were having dreams, or people were saying it to them, or all of those kind of things. But of course, the only real way to know 100% is if they check, right? So they checked and they let us know. I did have a few questions about whether a negative test could mean you're pregnant with twins. I have seen that question floating around a bit, and my initial thought was no, because that was definitely not my experience. My pregnancy test, when I tested with twins, was the line was just so dark and my results came up so quickly. I remember dipping the stick into my pee, and I dipped it in and kind of had like a, not a quick look, but to just check that I'd got it all the way in. I kind of lifted it up, looked at it, and at that time when I dipped it in, I lifted it up and looked at it, there were already 2 lines. And when I looked at it, kind of looked at the lines and turned it, and then went and read the instructions, because prior to taking that test, I'd only ever taken a test maybe maybe only twice before. So I wasn't 100% sure of how many lines I needed to see for it to be positive. I read that it had to be 2, and I thought to myself, well, I think I just saw 2, but I thought I would leave it for however long it said to leave it for. And then when I went back, the line was just super, super strong. But I have gone onto Google, and apparently the high levels of hormones that you have when you are pregnant with multiples can actually give you a false negative test. The high level of hormones can kind of throw it off. I would also mention though that I did test for pregnancy quite late, so I didn't miss my period and then test like a day or 2 afterwards. I think I tested maybe a week, maybe even like a week and a half after my missed period. I tested. So I did some research, and it said that when you're pregnant, your estrogen and your you know what I mean, levels go up. So I've been really, really struggling. So I've been putting off testing because, I don't know, it makes me a bit nervous, but I think now I'm going to test. We have been trying, but it's been a while. I think this is cycle 3, or this would be for cycle 3. So, I mean, it didn't happen super slow, but I don't know. It feels as though it's taken so long. I think that's partly because I've just been nervous about it. So I would be so happy to be pregnant. I really want to grow my family, and it just makes me a bit emotional. So I'm gonna test. I did wait a little bit so that I could manage my nerves, and then I went and got a test and tested. So apparently it can. I would definitely suggest that if you have missed your period, or if, I know not everybody gets regular periods, but if you feel as though you're pregnant and you, for whatever reason, are not having a positive test, then I would definitely recommend contacting your general practitioner. There are loads of reasons why we miss periods or don't have regular cycles, so it's always good to check with your doctor if you have any kind of questions or concerns about that kind of thing. But I thought it was interesting to know. I wonder how rare it is. I've actually never heard of it happening, but apparently it can happen. You can get a negative test if you are pregnant with multiples. I'm just imagining loads of you guys freaking out now and thinking, I've got a negative test now, maybe I'm pregnant with 3 kids. But honestly, guys, 1, be patient, because I find that sometimes if you have anxieties around being pregnant, it can delay your period. Like, your hormones are in control of so much. So my recommendation would be to kind of just be as calm as you can, wait it out, and then if you still haven't had your period, but you think you might be pregnant, or you might be unwell, or you've missed your period usually comes, anything like that, then it's really just a good idea to speak to your GP. So they're having twins. I wanted to give birth naturally and vaginally. And initially, when I found out I was pregnant with twins, I was just like, yeah, they can give me cesarean. I don't care. That was my first response. But then whilst I was pregnant and I started to do research around twin delivery, how to give birth to twins, all of that kind of stuff, I kind of started, thinking about it and thinking, I'm pregnant with twins. And women get pregnant with twins and multiples all of the time. And so my body must be equipped to handle it, right? So I felt as though if I was in a position where the babies were healthy and I was healthy and there were no other indicators of there being any issue with me giving birth vaginally, then that is what I was going to do. I considered saying to them, okay, well, I'll have an epidural and then I'll try to give birth vaginally. But from everything that I could see, epidurals can slow down delivery. So I was kind of like, well, no, I don't want to give birth to twins slowly. That's not what I want. I want to hurry up and get them out, right? So I don't necessarily want them to be affected by any of the drugs or it to slow anything down or anything like that. I kind of just want to do the thing, right? So that was my plan. And I think if you guys watch some of my twin pregnancy update videos, I think up to week 37, I think it was week 37 or week 36, that was still my plan. Here in England, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but in England you get to see a specialist. I was seeing the obstetrician, but there was no guarantee that when I gave birth it would be the same obstetrician, right? Because surprisingly to me, because I didn't know, but surprisingly to me, there are loads of different ways you can give birth, which sounds crazy, right? But what I mean is, if I had a scheduled C-section, then of course I'd have one obstetrician. If I spontaneously went into labour, then I'd have another obstetrician if that obstetrician was not on duty. If maybe, I don't know, something happened when I was out, you know, maybe I was a bit far away from home, then I'd be at a different hospital. I'd see somebody else. So there are so many different variables in what can happen that when I got to week 30, I think it was week 37, I found out that the son, who's now my middle son, was bum first. I was like, well, shit. Like, I guess I'm not giving birth vaginally, because essentially to give birth vaginally with twins in a way that the medics recommend, right? Because ultimately you can do what you want. Before I gave birth, I did watch a few twin labour and delivery stories and things like that, and I've seen more than one woman give birth vaginally, naturally, at home with twins, right? My obstetrician and my midwife didn't recommend that, and in all honesty, that's not something that I would have been comfortable doing myself. So I kind of had an idea of where my comfort level boundary was, which was I'm okay with attempting to give birth vaginally with gas and air. And if that doesn't work, then of course, then I'm fine with a cesarean. There is also a number of weeks that they don't recommend you go past. So with singleton pregnancies, they do usually allow you to go overdue, with the caveat that of course you're okay and baby is okay. So for my oldest son, I did go overdue by a week with him before I gave birth to him. But with the twins, they were kind of like, well, studies have shown that the most optimal time to give birth to twins, I think, is 38 weeks and 4 days, I believe it is. And they were saying that after that point, the risks to your babies just go up. So, I mean, I kind of, not ummed and erred about it, but I had a few different feelings about that. But ultimately, my focus was keeping the baby safe, because I found from the time that I found out it was twins, I was pregnant with twins, that was just an ongoing feeling that I had throughout the whole thing. I actually found it quite stressful. Like, in the back of my mind, I was constantly like, I hope, that they're both okay. In comparison to a singleton, you're kind of, instead of worrying about maybe you and the baby, you're like worried about you and two babies. So even more so during labour and delivery, I was kind of like, well, we're going to just do whatever's going to keep them safest, especially with the addition of some of the risks that Black women have receiving healthcare and all of those kind of things. I was like, let's not make it muddled. Let's just make sure that the babies are okay. So when I found out that baby A was not head first, which is what they prefer, with my obstetrician was like, we would be uncomfortable with you trying to deliver a breech baby. And I kind of felt that and was like, actually, yeah, so would I. So I was kind of like, okay, fine, I'll have a C-section, which was a bit disappointing for me, because I gave birth to my oldest son with gas and air, and I literally felt so accomplished, because it was actually something that I was quite scared of. So doing it, I felt so empowered. I thought, oh my gosh, like, how comes nobody has told me that women are absolutely amazing? Because how can you produce a human, right, and then give birth to that human. My mind was just absolutely blown. So when I came to the conclusion that maybe I could do that again and do it with two, I was like, if I'm able to do it with two, and absolutely, there's no one could tell me anything. But anyway, it didn't work, and I had a C-section scheduled. However, one night, actually the day after my oldest son's birthday, my waters broke in the middle of the night. And I ended up in hospital. And because it was in the middle of the night, they were kind of like, we usually would like to wait until, you know, they have the morning shift come. Being pregnant, and especially being pregnant with multiples, there's a really thin line that I feel that people and medical professionals try to tread with you, which is that they don't want to scare you. They don't want to scare you by kind of explaining to you all of the complexities, but they don't want you to be so relaxed that you take unnecessary risk. So I found that they were kind of trying to make that balance for me. Like, they want you to take it seriously, but they don't want you to take it so seriously that you're scared. I literally think that pregnancy in general, but definitely multiple pregnancy, is just, it's just amazing. It's just almost magical. The amount of things that have to align in order for you to give birth to two, whether that's vaginally or by C-section, all of the things that have to align so well in order for you to give birth to two healthy humans and get yourself out, you know, healthy as well. It's just really, really amazing. And I remember being on the table when they were giving me the C-section. I've never had any surgery before, so I've never been in a theatre, and I just remember walking in and just thinking, oh my God, there's so many people in here. This must be some serious shit, right? That's what I was thinking when I walked in. And so I remember lying on the table thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, this is serious, right? Are you prepared? There was a bit of back and forth with me and some of the people in the room, because they whispered or said to each other that maybe baby A wasn't breech. And as I've explained, having a vaginal birth was like plan A. So I was kind of like, well, if he's not breech, why am I here with like all 15 of you? What are we doing here? I had the C-section and gave birth to two healthy baby boys, which even now is mind-blowing. I think not the novelty, but the surprise or the shock of being a mum in general, it just still gets me sometimes. Sometimes I see them like they're running away, and I'm like, oh, like, for any of you who are pregnant with twins, or you think you are pregnant with twins, or you want to be pregnant with twins, I do have a free download of affirmations and a twin pregnancy checklist. For managing twin pregnancy or pregnancy in general, I would say that the main thing that's most helpful to master is your mindset. If you can get your mind right, because it takes so much resilience, and as I've said, because it takes so many things aligning and going well for you to get through, that having your mind in the right place can really help you to cope a bit better. So if you guys are interested in that download, then it is on my website. I've done a lot of talking in this video, so I think what I'm going to do is kind of split everything up.